Do you spend all your hard-earned cash on Magic the Gathering booster boxes every month? Well, you're in luck. Today, you can transfer your addiction to board games. I've got 10 great entry points for fans of MTG. Here we go. What is up, everybody? My name is Reggie, and today we're talking about games for fans of Magic. Now, I just started in Magic the Gathering last year around the time of Lord of the Rings. That really brought me in, and now I have 5 Commander decks and go to my local game shop and play with my buddies. It's a whole thing. So, a couple caveats. I did not put any other TCGs on here, even though I believe in the heart of the cards, you will not find Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, Flesh and Blood, Arcana on this list, games like that. I also got rid of any Richard Garfield design. So Richard Garfield has actually created a lot of board games and card games that are popular in the space outside of Magic the Gathering. Things such as King of Tokyo, Mindbug, Keyforge, Bunny Kingdom, and so you won't find those on the list, but I just thought I'd mention them here. My honorable mention is deck building, the deck building genre. That might pique your interest if you are a Magic player. Deck builders are really interesting because they come in many different flavors. The general premise is you are going to be buying cards from a market in some way, adding them to your deck, shuffling up, and every time you draw a new hand, you use all of your cards. All the different flavors could be, it could be a race. It could be you're drawing those cards up to do direct damage to an opponent. You could be drawing those cards up for area majority. Lots of different board gamey terms. But the choice that I will select is Star Wars, the deck building game. I really think it is a great game designed by Caleb Grace and published by Fantasy Flight Games. There's a market of Empire cards and Rebellion cards. One player plays as each faction. You can purchase only your cards, or you can destroy the opponent faction's cards, which is very unique. There's also neutral cards in the row that are bounty hunters, which is also very thematic. The goal of the game is to destroy three bases of your opponents, and it goes back and forth. It's got this nice force tracker. I think the biggest reason this would hit with a Magic player is because the decks are very clear cut what their strategies are by looking at the cards. So if you'll see, the Empire is more of a slower control style deck, and the Rebellion is very quick rush style aggro deck, and I'm sure this game is just waiting to get a bunch more expansions and add a lot more cards for playing the game. But that is my choice for the honorable mention, Star Wars, the deck building game. Number 10 is designed by Frederic Gouard, excuse my French, and it is published by Lucky Duck Games in the US. This is It's a Wonderful World. So my experience, like I mentioned, with Magic is Commander and Limited. And so in many Limited, there's sealed or there's draft, and the closed draft is where you open up a pack, you pick a card, and you pass that along. That was very much popularized in the 90s by Richard Garfield and Magic the Gathering. And there are many mega hits are in the board game space that have used that same mechanic. You may have heard of Seven Wonders or Sushi Go. Those are very big ones. So It's a Wonderful World falls into that same line, but it also is a really great resource generating type game, what is known as an engine builder. So you draft these cards, you place them in front of you, and they help you draft more resources. And those resources help you get more points, and it keeps ramping. You see the magic word there. If you are interested in ramping, you might really enjoy this game. And as you're passing things along, you are grabbing different combos and synergies. It really, really gives you that great, if you love making a deck on the spot with packs, I think you'll really enjoy It's a Wonderful World. Number 9 is Villainous, and this is published by Ravensburger. The main game is Disney themed. It is a deck game. Every single deck is completely asymmetric and unique to the character, whether that be Prince John or Ursula or Maleficent. And it is really a take that game, is what board gamers will call it, where you are attacking your opponents, and you can play 4-player like a Commander style. And if you don't like Disney, you might check out their Marvel Villainous or Star Wars Villainous as well. But I just think I could not make this list without mentioning Villainous because of how unique each deck is and kind of in a Commander style. So Villainous is really reminiscent of Magic to me for that reason, and it's also super thematic if you do have an affinity for the Magic IP and don't want to spend all your money on Arcana. Villainous would be a good alternative. Number 8 is Unmatched. Now, this is the quintessential arena battler in the board gaming world, and I love it so much because it has a lot of public domain characters. So there's Sherlock Holmes and Dracula and Bigfoot and Robin Hood and Little Red Riding Hood, Alice in Wonderland, so many amazing characters, Medusa. I could keep going, and each one again has a very unique deck. The art is out of this world, and unlike Magic, you get to mess around with little beautiful minis. If you want to start getting into another hobby, you can paint the minis. I've seen all the new Marvel stuff. They have Jurassic Park. So Unmatched, really the gameplay is card driven, and there is kind of a put a face down card to attack someone, and then they can defend with a card as well. And the biggest thing is there's kind of what's most reminiscent to Magic for me is the idea of the stack. During combat, there are immediate effects, during combat effects, and after combat effects. And I think a Magic player will really enjoy the structure of rules that go on when it comes to the combat, and really kind of ease into the game. After you've learned Magic, I think any of these board games on my list will be fairly easy for you to grasp. So Unmatched is my number 9. My number 7 is a little bit of a cheat, and these are the computer card games. So Hearthstone, Legends of Runeterra, and my personal favorite, Marvel Snap. I am a big fan of Marvel, if you do not know, and I have just been loving this game. And all of them have the typical ramp of every single turn you get more mana to use, or whatever it might be called. In Marvel Snap, it's energy. But why I love Marvel Snap the most is because it is a 12-card deck, and you can play a match in 3 to 5 minutes. So really, really quick hits of dopamine every time you play. You're not sitting in a 30 to 100 minute game. It's great when you're waiting in line. It's great when you're using the restroom. I love Marvel Snap. I played Runeterra a lot as well, and Hearthstone less so, but it's just amazing to be a Magic player now who played all of these computer games beforehand and realized that all of them are taking something from Magic the Gathering. So I would recommend any of them if you haven't tried, but especially Marvel Snap. Number 6 on my list is Dice Throne. Now, this is affectionately referred to as Battle Yahtzee because on your turn, you're going to be doing the lock and roll of 5 or 6 dice that you can roll and select what you want to do with them, and trying to get different combinations to do damage to your opponent. But the reason that I had to put it on this list is that the turn structure is so much like Magic, and there are cards in your deck that you have to use in order to upgrade your dice abilities and affect rolls during the game. So on a turn, you have an upkeep phase, you have a main phase 1, you have a combat roll phase with the dice, and you have a main phase 2. There are cards that you can only trigger during the main phase, such as a sorcery, and there are red bordered cards that are instants. It's really, really great to see that Magic has inspired a dice game that happens to use cards. I think if you like that head-to-head battle and you like unique characters in a game, you cannot go wrong with Dice Throne. My number 5 game is Fantasy Realms. This is a little bit of a wild card on my list, the most of all 10 on here. It is designed by Bruce Glasgow and is strictly a card game. On your turn, you are going to draw a card and discard a card. When there are 10 cards discarded in the middle, the game ends. And what everyone does is actually scores their hand, and all the cards have different suits and different combos. As someone who loved card games growing up, I love the combos in this game and the art and how it's just very, very generic fantasy. If that's not for you, then I totally understand. Again, if you are playing Magic for combos, you're not playing the combos down to do damage to someone, but you are trying to collect the best combos possible in order to have the highest score. And the thing about Fantasy Realms compared to other games that are similar is that you can have huge, outlandish 100+ point hands, unlike some other tighter games on my list as well. So Fantasy Realms, I think, is a really nice light entry point and would translate well for any fans of the Magic aesthetic, I should say. My number 4 is my most played game, and that is Marvel Champions. When I am introducing this to someone, I say it is Magic the Gathering, but with Marvel theme, but it's cooperative, and people get their interest peaked. It's got the same level of complexity and combos and deck construction especially, and yet you are playing against a big bad villain from the Marvel universe, playing as your favorite superheroes. There is so much variety and thematic implementation from all these great characters. Right now they are bringing in the X-Men, and they have so many boxes and packs already out. I have barely scratched the surface, but every single time I play this game, whether it's solo or with up to 4 players, I have a great time, and I cannot get enough of this game, and I keep buying more. It is called a living card game. I think the 2 things you want to think about if you are coming from Magic is, number 1, there's no such thing as booster packs at all. If you want a card, you know exactly which pack you want to go and get it from. So for example, I'm playing War Machine. I saw these new cards that came out that would make War Machine really great, and they come in this Spider-Verse box. So I just bought the Spider-Verse box, and I got every single card I wanted. I love that about it. But also it has the 4 aspects, which are colors: red, blue, yellow, and green, and those are very similar to how Magic deck building works, and so I love that about the game. Marvel Champions is just a hit. I definitely think you will enjoy this if you're coming from trading card games, and maybe the competitive nature of it is leaving a sour taste in your mouth. You might want to try a cooperative game, getting the same level of combos and complexity and deck building, but instead you're playing against a very well thought out, customizable villain. Marvel Champions is a hit for me every time. Moving on to number 3, this is one of my favorite games of the year, and this is Challengers. So it is a tournament style game. So it reminds me the most of a sealed event for Magic. So in sealed, you are opening up 6 packs of cards and you're building a deck. Everybody's on the same playing field, and you get to test your deck building ability on the fly. In Challengers, you play a match, then you get to draft cards in between, and then you get to play that deck again. It does a 7-match tournament plus a championship for the 2 people who have the most points in about 45 minutes. And how it does that is that once you build your deck, the actual combat is you are just flipping cards in like a war style, the classic card game War. So it feels like there's a lot of luck to it, but with your deck building, you really get to kind of manage how that works, and there's a few more complexities to it. Check out some of my older videos on Challenger. But gosh, it is just the perfect distillation of what it feels like to go play a sealed trading card game event at your local game shop in such a small amount of time. And again, everyone's on the same playing field. Even if someone knows the set of cards better than others, you might not draft the cards you want, and you got to make do with what you're given. And I love that about Challengers, and it has just skyrocketed as one of my favorite games of all time, just in the last year and a half or so. Challengers and Challengers Beach Cup. Okay, number 2 is another head-to-head card battler, and this is Radlands. Comes in a nice small box. The art is outstanding. It's kind of this Mad Max punk theme, and instead of mana, you're using water every turn, and you have 3 lanes, and you're protecting your bases. Each of the bases have abilities on them, and every card that you play has abilities as well. A couple things that make it really interesting to me are there are fodder cards that are called the punks, which is just the back of the card. You just get to put them down. They're basically like a 1/1 token, but you are both sharing the same deck. Instead of having 2 unique decks, you are drawing cards from the same deck, which I think is really interesting. There's variable hand starting sizes based on the bases that you choose. There's very strict rules on your turn order and how you do damage. And so again, coming from something like Magic, having that structure in a small box game, but having satisfying variability every time you play it, Radlands really hits hard. And I was actually taught to it by my coworker who plays the most Magic, and so we play it together often, and it really just scratches that same itch. My top choice for fans of Magic the Gathering is Res Arcana. Now, this is one of my favorite games of all time, designed by Tom Lehman and published by Sandcastle Games. Now, the biggest reason why is thematically, it just really fits similar with this beautiful alchemy mage style theme, but it is the most dissimilar in typical gameplay. You are not attacking someone's health total. It is a race to 10 points, but you are using your deck and your mage to generate resources faster than your opponents. There are ways to slow them down and attack their resource pool, but I think this is the biggest example of a game that is distant enough from Magic, but for whatever reason, there's just some quality to it. As someone who grew up on trading card games and now has discovered board games later in life, that there's just some quality that really just hits as someone who loves combos and unique decks and asymmetry that something like Magic brings to you also. Res Arcana hits for me every single time I play it. There's so much variability. You can play with a completely random deck, or you can draft your cards. It's really, really tight in that you're going to 10 points and your deck is 8 cards. As you add one of the 2 expansions, you get a lot more options of cards, but the game is just lovely and has gone over well with everyone I've taught it to, many of which are Magic enjoyers as well. So Res Arcana is my top choice for this video. Thank you for watching this top 10. I had a lot of fun making it. As someone who's really been into board games, it has my heart. Magic has really gripped me a lot over the last 6 months, and it was just fun to put out this list. So if you are a board gamer and you've watched me for a long time, send this to your Magic friends. I think maybe you could ease them into the hobby with that. And if you are coming straight from Magic, I hope you found one game that is interesting to you. And if you did, again, comment, share, like, and I will see you in the next video.